You think that you have an email ID, you think that you have a bank account, and you might think that you have a social media account, but at the end of the day you don't own any of them. You own a social media account because Facebook is allowing you to, or Twitter is allowing you to have that account. This illusion of you owning something is like completely not true. Similarly, your banks, we think it's you own the money, you don't own the money. The bank owns the money on your behalf. So you don't own these things. In this paradigm, you have the native ownership of assets, you have the native ownership of some accounts and all that. Once something is in an account, they can't do anything with that. That is the fundamental paradigm shift that we see from web 2 to web 3.
But you guys had to really do a lot of home growth and work really in the trenches. You didn't get Silicon Valley VC or a lot of that some of the other bigger projects get. But also, I think you said that's maybe why Polygon's so good, because you built it that way.
For us co-founders, it has been really a very, very hard journey. We didn't have VCs, we didn't have professors, to bring reputation. We didn't have like influencers talking about us on the TV. All we had is users. I want community to be more and more educated, and I would recommend more and more people to read the base of this, to understand the base of this technology. And first of all, don't get into it thinking of it as a technology. Think of it as a paradigm shift. You don't learn blockchain by learning it, you learn it by living it, right? So start living it.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Sandeep Nailwal, the entrepreneur, software developer, and cryptocurrency pioneer. You are the co-founder and COO of Polygon, the scaling solution known as, quote, Ethereum's Internet of Blockchains, with over $10 billion in locked value and now one of the world's top 15 cryptocurrencies. Your platform has successfully addressed major scalability issues while maintaining incredibly low fees, and your recent $250 million acquisition of Hermes Network was the first complete merger of one blockchain network into another and transacted entirely in tokens. The billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban stated that after Bitcoin and Ethereum, Polygon is, quote, destroying everyone else, and he's made a large investment in your company. And you are also the founder of India's Crypto COVID Relief Fund and have donated $15 million to UNICEF India. Sandeep, welcome to London Real.
Thank you so much for having me here.
To talk about, I want to get into the detail of exactly what you guys do inside Polygon. But before we start, I'm sure there's a lot of people joining us that maybe know a little bit about crypto, maybe they've bought some ETH, but maybe this is new to them. And I thought maybe we do just a quick acceleration through the concepts of maybe Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 to maybe explain why this matters so much. I still remember sending my first email in 1989. I was at MIT and they called it the Athena Network. And I was really excited, Sandeep, and I sent an email to my brother at Stanford, and then I didn't use it for 4 years. I think, remember my first browser in 1995, and then I remember joining Facebook and YouTube in the mid-noughties. But now we're going to this concept of Web 3.0, and it's a major shift in the philosophy of what we do on the web, not to mention all the exciting stuff you guys are doing on the blockchain. How would you explain this kind of thing to your grandma or to people on the streets when it comes to this concept of 1.0, 2.0, 3.0?
I would even go back, than the internet itself. If you go, let's say 200, 300 years back, right? We had was a king, right? And then there were empires, and then the king was the only institution, and whatever king said was the law, was the bank, was the treasury, everything was king, right? But then, somewhere in 200 to 300 years back, we started, the whole world, like, basically slowly and steadily started shifting towards these nation states, right? And then our governments became institutions, and our banks became institutions. Everything today, like, for example, and this is continued till today, and everything that we see today is in the form of an institution. And globally, if you see, the like, in the last 200 300 years, this cycle of evolution happened, and then, ups and downs in that, and it has reached a place today where the institutional trust globally is at all time low, right? Nobody really trusts any kind of institution, be it government, be it bank, be it media. Nobody trusts, anybody, right? The reason is that, these institutions have been running in a kind of a centralized mode, like, or at max delegated mode, where you have a core set of people who run that institution. And then sometimes, like in government, people will vote for something, and then some delegates will actually choose the core people and things like that. But eventually, like, the reason being, the problems are there is, like, a lack of transparency, corruption, and all those things are there. Secondly, the individuals participation in these institutions also becomes smaller and smaller. And this technology, like, I always say to people who want to get into the technology, that don't think of it as a technology. First of all, think of it as a paradigm shift in how we human beings can collaborate, right? Previously, as I was explaining, institutions, so the one way that we interact, if I have to sell land to you or a house to you, we go to a registrar's office who registered it in your name, right? So the registrar becomes the institution and all that. So because they are also ensuring your ownership of some things. With blockchains, two things get changed radically. One, that the ownership is secured, in a very sovereign way on the digital platform itself, like that is on the internet itself. The ownership, nobody needs to ratify your ownership. You don't need any third party or any central party to ratify your ownership for anything, be it asset. In future it will be, right now it's digital assets. In future we expect that more and more physical assets will also come in some form with this ownership. And the second thing is that whenever you are interacting with any application, any network, that network is, although that network, if you can think of it as an institution in itself, but no central party is running it. You don't need to trust any central party to do it, right? So if you are participating in the network, for example, Bitcoin or Ethereum network, you can also become a validator or a miner, and then start running the network. So the network is not owned by any central party. And these two things kind of completely and radically change how we human beings interact with each other. So when you remove that kind of mental barrier of that this is some core technology and all that, this makes your life much easier, and then you can go deeper into it, that what exactly is happening, right? And you can understand, okay, Bitcoin tried to solve this for currency, like, which is a simple business logic. I pay to you $100, my balance goes down by 100, your balance goes up by 100, right? And then how you can apply the same concepts to Ethereum, which can process much more complicated business logic, that me and some more people sign on something, then only we pay to someone, and all that complicated logic can be used. So now coming back to in the context of internet also, so this same thing, the same concepts of institutions and ownership being decided by some other party to complete ownership in the hands of the user, is this evolution from basically web 2 to web 3. Web 1 was very primitive, but web 2, basically all of the listeners will understand that in web 2, for example, you think that you have an email ID, you think that you have a bank account, and you might think that you have a social media network, but at a social media account, but at the end of the day, you don't own any of them. Like, you own a social media account because Facebook is allowing you to, or Twitter is allowing you to have that account. And Twitter, if they don't like, they can even shut down the Twitter account of the president of America. So this illusion of you owning something is like completely not true. Similarly, your banks, like, we all have in our lives one day or the other, have seen times where we think that we own the money in the bank, but then the bank completely goes for a toss. One fine morning you wake up and your life savings are gone, right? So we think it's you own the money, you don't own the money, the bank owns the money on your behalf, right? And same thing is with your email. If something happens and some malware comes to your account, and let's say some terrorist is using your email, Gmail might block your email for the entire life, right? So you don't own these things. Any of the things that you feel on the internet you don't own actually. And the same thing, like, this Web3 with the concept of blockchains brings into onto the table, that here in this paradigm, you have a native ownership via a small few character key. You have the native ownership of assets, you have the native ownership of some accounts and all that. Once something is in an account, nobody, be it president of America or be it president of anywhere, they can't do anything with that. That is the fundamental paradigm shift that we see from Web 2 to Web 3. And in Web 3 you will have these dApps. Right now the technology has not reached that place. Right now you have currency, you have banks. DeFi is basically essentially nothing but the traditional banking system in your control, and you control all your assets and everything. And then in future, very soon, you will have these social networks and then different kinds of like email services and things like that, where you will own them completely. Your data will not be sold to the advertisers. If at all you want to sell it, you will be the one who will be receiving the money on that behalf. So this is this fundamental shift, not only in how we human beings interact with each other, but the way our internet is evolving into Web3.
Do you think us as humans on this planet are even ready for that paradigm shift? I mean, do you think some of this is just going to have to be born of new generations? Because we're so conditioned to these institutions that, most people don't even know how to have a relationship with their own money, and then you give them DeFi platforms and this, and, it's like, oh, I'm not used to this. Sometimes they want, the insurance of having a big brother looking after it. Well, of course, there's the downside that you don't own it. So is this shift itself going to be a difficult one mentally for us as humans?
Yeah, it is going to be, and you are right, it will be a generational shift. But the fun thing is, if you look deeply, these days, the technology is moving so fast. I say that the generation changes every 6 or 7 years instead of every 20 years, right? I mean, if I talk to my brother who's like 7-8 years younger than me, like the kind of apps he used, the kind of like the how their friends interact, their dating life, everything is completely different than what I am used to, right? So good thing is, yes, this is a generational change, but then the generations will change very, very fast. So generations are changing very, very fast due to this technology, the VR. Like 6-10 years younger kids, they are spending more and more their lives on virtual reality, where they own assets. Like gaming industry, very few people know that gaming industry is so big that there's a documentary in Netflix which has a very famous kind of section which says that gaming is basically bigger than in the US. You have this basketball, NBA, like National Football League, they're famous, like like American football, and the entire Hollywood and few more of these entertainment industries combined. Like gaming is this bigger, and this 130-150 billion dollar revenues in gaming industry. And these users are spending more and more time into these. And now with this concepts like play to earn in the gaming industry, in the NFT industry, that you guys must be hearing, because now you have a global secondary market where you can play a game, earn some assets, and then sell it into the market and play it, use this play to earn kind of model. People are spending 10x more money into these gaming assets. So gaming industry is also poised for this huge explosion into 10x 20x bigger size than what they are today. So definitely, yes, this is a generational shift, but then generations are changing very fast. And our generation, like maybe 10 years younger kids, they're already doing this. They're already, we call some of these kids crypto native. And there are already examples where kids are like, these people, even now I have become like, because I use so much, I'm like much more comfortable paying and owning whatever I have in crypto, instead of like converting into bank and transferring, registering accounts. It's just too much of a hassle. It's sooner or later it's going to be in that way. And one another thing you said, that we are used to having some big boss watching and protecting us from our own mistakes and all that. Those are actually application design patterns. You can easily build those patterns where in let's say 2 3 4 years, you will be able to choose a custody account which actually where you own some asset, but then you also have a custodian who provides some level of security on top of that. Let's say you own some asset, or you want to own, like, let's say, real home on blockchain. So a primary question is, what if I lose my key, right? And somebody just takes away the ownership of my account, of my house. But the design patterns will evolve in a way that for this kind of asset, you will have one set of key with you, but then you will need 4 or 5 different signatures, maybe 2 3 signatures from your family members, 1 or 2 signatures from the local government, and then you will be able to transfer. So even if you lose your key, it's okay. You'll be able to recover, or maybe add a new key, and then there will be more people to predict. So these are application design patterns. They will eventually evolve into much more comfortable systems, like you were just mentioning.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You can actually engineer them in yourself and pay a proper fee for them, as opposed to them just being rolled into the institution. I think Vitalik Buterin has his ETH locked up in a cold storage system that needs family members to approve before certain chunks of it can be moved. So I know some people, or that's being offered out there already to a certain extent. I want to start by asking you a question that one of my students asked me. And I was actually in the banking industry for about 15 years. I started back in the 90s in the derivatives market on Wall Street, and we were doing all sorts of complicated option trades and repo trades. It was kind of the Aave of its time in some of these options market at the time, but I had to have a big balance sheet and 20,000 employees and a direct line to the Fed to create these products. And when I watched what you guys were doing about a year ago, I thought, wow, I've never seen this rate of innovation, the amount of value locked, and the rate of growth. And I thought, if 4 guys and a dog, or 5 girls and a cat in Singapore or St. Petersburg or somewhere can create a DApp, as opposed to having it be somebody at Bankers Trust where I worked, or Goldman Sachs, this is going to move so fast. And so we started, you're smiling, I'm going to get to you in just a second. So we started an academy, and I started forcing my students to put on small trades so they can get familiar with them. So they put on a yield swap, they put on a liquidity pool, they put on these things. And even in just tiny small size, so they can get experience with it. Because I think it's a great way to get to know a trade, just why you can buy $20 worth of gold and you can get to know it. And one student came back to me with this question, and it made me think of you. He said, Brian, where did my ETH go? That was a common question. Where did my ETH go? And it reminded me of, there's this book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's an old school book. It was written by an author, and it all started with a question from somebody in Papua New Guinea when he said to this author, he said, how come all you guys in the West have all this cargo and stuff? And he had to go through like 1,000 years of history to explain it. And my student was frustrated, Sandeep, because they were doing Uniswap for the first time, and it provided an amazing service that you couldn't get, say, a year and a half ago. But they were paying so much in gas fees. Some of my students were staying up till 3 a.m. to avoid the gas fees. And I thought that would be a good question to ask you, is where did my ETH go? The reason you guys are in business, the reason you guys are so popular, and why is that a question people ask? And why do people struggle with this?
For sure. So, the first part of your statement that, that people are doing like this here, the rate of innovation is so fast, because at the end of the day, we call it something called composability, right? So one smart contract can interact with some other smart contract. And if you see in the span of like 6 to 10 months, actually smart contract developers were able to build everything that is available in the traditional finance industry. The traditional finance industry has taken like hundreds of years to build these complex products and all that, credit default swaps, interest rate swaps, and this and that. All of that has been built, within a span of 6 months on blockchain. So congratulations.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
It's called financial engineering on steroids, basically, right? So that's the first part. But the second thing that you were saying, that where did my ETH go? So first of all, I would like to state that why ETH is why the gas fees is so high, and then we can go into what other mechanisms are possible to kind of make it more palatable, at least for the retail users. See, at the end of the day, Ethereum is basically the goal of Ethereum is basically to become a world computer. And I tend to call it like the global settlement layer, right? So where all these big trades and big, complex financial transactions will be settled. And that's where that's our philosophy, is that Ethereum is going to be that layer. Why? Because it's extremely decentralized and extremely secure. That means so many people are running the full nodes in the network, that when you are transacting, when you are doing or processing a transaction logic, a large number of people are executing the same logic. So obviously, in order to incentivize people to keep this extremely secure and decentralized, you have to pay for this service, which the whole network, you are essentially, when you pay it, it goes to the miners who are mining the, or kind of creating these transactions, combining them, and putting them on the block. And then the block size, you can imagine that already for the whole world, it's like in a single block we can have roughly, I think, 300 to 400 transactions, right? So obviously you can imagine that this is for the whole world, so people have to compete to become a part of this, or to buy a part of this block space, because it's extremely, again, the reason is extremely decentralized and extremely secure. So but then, how the retail users who have less than, let's say, 500 or $1,000 portfolios, and they want to do these smaller trades, how can they do these or interact with the blockchains? So for the same thing, there is something called layer 2 scalability, and that's what we are working on, right? So layer 2 scalability simply means that we keep the layer 1 Ethereum. Like, imagine that this is the Ethereum, layer 1 Ethereum, and then what we do is we create a parallel blockchain on top of, which is running on top of this, which derives some security parameters from Ethereum. And then instead of you transacting directly on Ethereum, you transact on this layer, right? As a retail user. And that, you do, let's say, thousands and thousands of transactions. And then let's say, for example, Polygon, what we do, we combine all these transactions, batch them in a cryptographic way, and put one transaction on Ethereum. So whereas, you would have paid 1,000 transactions, and 1,000 transactions would have to compete to get this block space. Now only one transaction and some data goes there, which is a condensed form of these hundreds or thousands of transactions, and only now this goes into Ethereum, and that provides you additional scalability benefits. And so much so that I think many of the applications like Aave, SushiSwap, and many others have saved like millions and millions in gas fees by using Polygon. And then they have kept these network effects closer to Ethereum. And yeah, that is the layer 2 scaling, and that's where Polygon and teams like Polygon are trying to scale Ethereum. There are various different ways, different trade-offs of security and decentralization, everything, but that is on the higher level what Polygon and other layer 2 solutions are trying to do.
I think you've been in the past made a comparison, like you might go to the mall and use your credit card and buy different things and get receipts for different things, but then at the end of the month you just get one debit off of your account and pay for that. So it's a way of you're aiding all of those transactions, but it still gets settled on that Ethereum blockchain layer.
Yes, something like that also. And there can be multiple analogies, right? So I mean, the analogy I gave is that when you go to a smaller or kind of a large kind of mall, or who has some internal financial setup or financial system setup, and you are buying some stuff and all that, so you swipe your credit cards and all that, and then credit card companies basically collect all that transactions, and then in T+2 days they settle and all that, right? So basically you don't settle everything on the larger banking network, you settle a lot of these things on this credit card, like a smaller and closed network, and then settle back to your bank account monthly. Like for example, from bank you submit into your credit card account like monthly, right? So that can be one analogy, loose analogy though. There can be like you can also think of it like your Venmo account. I don't know in UK people use Venmo or not, but it's like basically you have a wallet where you deposit your money from your bank account to this wallet, and then using this wallet you can anywhere just scan a QR code and make your payments and all that. So instead of you using and adding bank accounts, with those complex bank account number and then IFSC codes and whatnot, you simply transfer it to a wallet with which you can by phone numbers you can transfer money with each other. So that is also one analogy where your bank is basically the Ethereum level, and this wallet is like Polygon.
Right.
So that can also be one analogy.
I remember when I was early on, I asked someone, I was new to the space. I said, will Polygon replace Ethereum? And they said, no, Ethereum's like cash and Polygon's like PayPal. It just gives you an easier way or more convenient way to use something you've already used. Now, maybe that's not the right analogy, but you want to try to...
It's very relevant. It's very relevant that Polygon is not there to replace Ethereum. Polygon is just a transaction layer on top of Ethereum, which aims at providing faster transactions on Ethereum, so that these smaller value transactions, like we don't recommend like $1 billion or $100 million transaction happening on Polygon, right? We recommend these smaller, like 500,000, 10,000, up to 10,000 or 20,000 kind of transactions happening on Polygon, maybe even up to $100,000 transactions. But if you want to transact, let's say, $10 million, you can easily pay that 50, 60, $100 gas fees on Ethereum and be more secure on that.
Right. So the biggest complaint I get from my students is not, I don't understand what a yield swap is, or the liquidity pool makes me nervous, or options scare me. It's all gas fees. Like, they hate the gas fees. Now, of course, they're doing small trades and the gas fees sometimes are as big as the trade. But I've told them that, look, over time, there will be competition and the fees will go down. And, Sandeep, we waited for the London hard fork to happen. We've been promised ETH 2.0, but I haven't seen the gas fees dropping. And so my question to you is, what were these things supposed to bring? And will Ethereum ever be able to lower the gas fee significantly? Or is it already innately, in the way it was built, impossible to drop them down based on the demand?
I feel that, that's the, like on Ethereum, even when the ETH 2.0 comes in, and then the gas fees on Ethereum slightly go down, but the demand will be so high. Like, for example, this EIP 1559 came in, and then, for some days the gas became really low and all that. But then now suddenly these NFTs exploded to the scene. And then now again, we have this $510,000 transaction, or $500 transactions, or $1,000 transaction gas fees, is there. So, for all these use cases which are low in value, I would strongly recommend, even your users to use Polygon, something like Polygon, right? I mean, they can transact at almost like insignificant gas fees and get that experience. And we are already seeing that, like, I think these applications like Aave and SushiSwap and all that, their number of users of these applications on Polygon chain are much higher than the number of users that they, let's say on Ethereum.
Yeah, a lot of my students are already doing that. I want to ask you about, well, first of all, when is ETH 2.0 coming? Because they told us end of this year, early next year, but you don't believe that.
Yeah, so I mean, see, ETH 2.0 is a very large project. Even like people also have these misconceptions that, for example, end of this year, it's not ETH 2.0 and was supposed to come end of this year. It's the merge with the proof of stake that is going to come end of this year. And then, but the eventual move to ETH 2.0, where you will have this like 64 shards and all that might take like 3 to 5 years somewhere, right? But then now the next big step is to get the merge into the proof of stake system. Right now, Ethereum is still proof of work, which is, as everyone knows, is not very good for environment and whatnot. And we expect this to move into a proof of stake kind of a network where the energy requirements go much lower.
Okay. Now, but you've even said, even if 2.0 happened right now, the network can't handle the volumes that's necessary. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Our thesis is that even if, see, what is ETH 2.0? ETH 2.0 is basically current chain, but 64 such chains like the current chain. And the demand right now, if you see the like, right, what do you want, like gas fees to be maybe like $1, $2, and the the gas fees for transactions is like 500, $600 right now. Maybe even yesterday it like broke all records and it was like maybe $1,000. So if you want to have a gas fees somewhere of, let's say, and this is very layman terms, I'm not talking very deep, there are a lot of nuances to it, but then in a very layman term, you can think that the gas fees is like now today $1,000, and the ideal gas fees people would be maybe sub $1 to do a transaction, right? Even $1 is a big fees to pay for this. So if you see it this way, the gas fees is already like 1,000 times higher than what it should have been. Maybe even in the stable times, if you say gas fees should be like when gas fees are like $200, even then from $1 to $200, it's like 200 times higher than that. And what ETH 2.0 is doing is basically it is adding 64 such shards instead of one such shard, right? Instead of one such chain, you have 64 chains. So basically you will get 64x scalability, but the demand is 100 to 500x of that. So even if when that comes, the gas fees will become lower, but it will be still significantly high enough to be prohibitive for a large number of small use cases. So that's our core philosophy and thesis is at Polygon, that this layer 1 will act as a settlement layer, but eventually the business activity will move towards the layer 2s like Polygon.
Okay, and you have Polygon solutions for most of the major dApps and most of the major applications. So it's easy. And you said before, I think if you're an Ethereum developer, then that means you're a Polygon developer. What did you mean by that?
So because, one of our core design philosophy has been that we have kept the Polygon development ecosystem or development, mechanisms so close to Ethereum, like it's like almost 100%. You just need to change like one or two parameters, and then boom, you can deploy on Polygon chains. You don't need to learn anything new. And we understand that developers want to build cool things. They don't want to keep learning more and more things about infrastructure, right? So we wanted to use or kind of the compound on the network effects of Ethereum, and so that the developers can simply take your existing code, deploy it on Polygon, and then start using this scalability benefits.
How important is it to build relationships with developers? I mean, one of the reasons Ethereum is hard to replace is because, they have so many people that develop on that platform and have for many years. You guys are probably some of the best, I think, when it comes to facilitating them, listening to them. How do you do that, and why is that so important? Because the end user doesn't really see that sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason for that, I would say, is because we also come from Ethereum community. We are hardcore Ethereum developers, and, we have been into the community and kind of learned the ethos from there. And then we are applying those same ethos on the Polygon side of things. And so, we have a very heavy focus on hackathons and, providing very close-handed support to the developers, trying to do as much as we can on the documentation side and all that, and incubating and helping developers grow, because it's like still a very closely knit community. And once those developers grow, they kind of tend to help more people who are joining new and all that, and kind of becomes a trickling down effect. But then these are the few things like hackathons and providing very close-handed support to developers is what we do.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the question I've asked my last four guests, and I'll tell you what they said before you have to answer it. Will Cardano replace Ethereum? Now, I asked this from Dan Moorhead, who runs $3 billion for Pantera Capital. I asked to Scaramucci, who owns $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. I've asked to Scott Melker, a bunch of people. And strangely, and we've got Charles on the show coming up here in another week or so, a lot of them said that Ethereum was the Microsoft Office of blockchain, as in it might not always be the best software, but since it has the most adoption and it's woven in to the DNA of the world, that it's going to be here even if something better replaces it. What do you say, Sandeep?
I mean, I personally don't feel that, ADA or Cardano or any other platform for that matter will be able to replace Ethereum. Probably because of the same things that you are saying. It's so tightly woven in that, even if you speak to developers today, and we speak to a lot of developers, almost 100% of the blockchain developers, their first blockchain is Ethereum blockchain, right? So, and then second thing is 95% of all the developers, when you speak to a blockchain developer and he says that I'm a blockchain developer, actually he means that he's an Ethereum developer, right? So it's so tightly woven in. And then it's like, Mike, I don't know about the Microsoft example, but people give an example of it being the JavaScript, right? So EVM being the JavaScript of the system. So JavaScript is also a programming language which is not very optimal, was designed in a haphazard way, but then somehow it kind of clicked, and then it still remains the most popular language in the in the web programming space. And that's why a lot of people are trying to copy the EVM effects, like the same, like they are trying to implement, like the base blockchains are different, but then they are adding these adding these EVM features on top of their blockchain, so that they can try to attract Ethereum developers. Which in the short run, definitely they will be able to get some initial developers, but then eventually in the long run, the kind of the decentralization and security that Ethereum provides, and proven kind of existence, through these hacks and attacks and whatnot, that's what in the last 6-7 years has got Ethereum slowly that confidence, where institution can put $1 billion on Ethereum blockchain, right? Like for any other blockchain, I don't see them reaching anytime soon at a place where institutions are putting billions and billions of dollars of their hard-earned capital and all that. And second thing is also, if you see apart from these things, if you see, like on Ethereum, the wallet alone has had like maybe 800 million to $1 billion worth of attacks. Like the DeFi on Ethereum, for example, has had probably $1 to $2 billion worth of attacks. And then we have some standard design mechanisms that how you should build the smart contracts and all that. Imagine all these new, like Cardano now launching smart contracts, or Solana, or any of these blockchains who are launching these things, these smart contract platforms right now, because the funds and capitals in these platforms are so low that hackers are not even looking into it. When they reach a particular point where it starts becoming lucrative for hackers, then a lot of hackers will start kind of hacking and exploiting these smart contracts, and it will take a long time for these communities to reach a point where you can stably and securely build these smart contracts, the wallets, and all those experiences. Ethereum has already gone through that, and with the solutions like Polygon and all that, you have the scale also now available on Ethereum. So why do you need any other blockchain? So only it's in the short run, because right now we are in the bull market, and some of these applications can have those projects throw money around on the projects, and those projects launch, and their token goes like pump and all those kind of things, and then everybody is happy, and that's why they are able to attract the developers. Once this kind of extreme hype dies down, and when it will come down to fundamentals, Ethereum is like way far ahead of anything else, and it has had those perfect storms multiple times, with the ICO boom, then DeFi boom, and then NFT boom, and then DAO boom right now. It's very hard to replicate for any other blockchain.
Okay, so you won't be building second layer solutions for Cardano or any other chains at this point?
Not any points, or not anytime soon. And I don't think that, unless like somebody is comprehensively able to replace Ethereum, which we are, I think we are one of the most aggressively adopted blockchains. So first, before replacing Ethereum, many of these blockchains would have to replace Polygon, I think, and then they can really attack Ethereum. And then I think projects like ours, will provide ample cushion for Ethereum in terms of scalability for anybody to replace or even think about replacing Ethereum.
Okay. What do you like better, bull markets or bear markets? Because like you said, when the bulls are happening, lots of new things are going on, but the bear market is when things get stress tested and a lot of when the good development happens during bear markets, right?
Yes. So it's a balance, like the both balance is important. Like, 2 years of bear market, then, 2-3 years of bull market is the perfect mix. Like, you then build and bull markets are extremely taxing, right? And I can't, I can't tell you, I just wanted to, before joining this call, I wanted to, tell somebody from my family to give me a coffee because, I've been on this constant calls for, I don't know how long, and it's been like days and days. It goes like this, that we're 12 hours, 13 hours of calls, and all this stuff apart from the usual work. So it's very taxing, and I always keep saying, I've tweeted about it also, that this somebody should do a deep study on the effects of crypto on the mental health of people working in it, because there is no Saturday, Sunday, there is no Christmas, there is no Diwali holiday, there's no holidays, like say 24/7, right? It's like too painful and too stressful. I mean, if you see in the traditional world also, like traditionally the most taxing industries have been finance industry, the investment sides of thing, or the tech industry, where you are building this new tech. And crypto is basically merger of these two, and that too without any breaks. Like, it's not like the market ends at 4 p.m and then everybody can go home and all that, and weekend it doesn't open, and there is a Labor Day holiday and freedom Independence Day holiday, nothing, right? It works all the time, in more so on these holiday times. So it's very, very taxing.
And the bull market means you get media requests. In the bear market, you don't. But the bull market, people talk about it. They want to talk about it. Usually means retail or investing. Maybe retail that shouldn't be investing are investing. And then that tops out, and then you can get back to work in the bear market.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you went from a 200 million market cap up to 15 billion this year. That is good for business, though, right? For you, because it also means more people, more people involved, et cetera. I mean, how has that changed your life and Polygon?
Yeah, in terms of like our ability to swing big, it has done wonders for us. Like, we recently acquired Hermes, which is like a $250 million acquisition. We are doing more with like, I can only say that, that Hermes acquisition is like basically a tip of the iceberg. And, there are so many more things coming over there. And yes, it allows us to swing big. Now we have multiple offices all across the world, and then multiple teams working multiple solutions. And I think, it will be 1 to 1.5 or 2 years of, hard work from our side to fully blossom Polygon into, something really, really big. And we like this kind of organic, slow growth. Like, like for example, people, as you were saying, that people remember Polygon, that this year we became from 200 million to $15 billion valuation. But if you see, we have been working hard and perfecting these, building our infrastructure, building these tooling and all that for last 2.5 years. It's just that it kind of, because we were from India, nobody really give too much of attention to this. And then when we kind of reached that tipping point, and the industry and the Ethereum gas fees were going crazy high, we were suddenly suddenly in the belly of the beast. And then we started running, and then it ran crazy. And but the thing is, for any big project, you need multiple such upward cycles. You always grow up, plateau, and then that's what we focus on. And then we are already that success was baked in 1 year back. Now we are working on things which will result in our success in the next 6 months to 12 months.
Yeah, there's that old expression, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So you guys were putting in the work, and you did all the development, and then it happened, and there was product market fit, and you guys took advantage of it, but it wasn't exactly like you bought a lottery ticket to be there. Talk to me about this purchase of Hermes, because when I saw it, I put my old investment banking hat on, and I thought, my first reaction, Sandeep, was, who advised on that? Was that Goldman Sachs that advised? And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is a completely token transaction. It's sizable. It was notable. Talk to me about how that happened, and that gets you what? In the ZK zero knowledge space a little bit more, But tell me about that merger. It was impressive, really.
Yes. So basically, I mean, as you at the start of the session also said that Polygon is a multi-chain Ethereum, right? So
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.